Hi, welcome to my channel. I thought I'd do a video on baby names inspired by Irish goddesses. Irish mythology and folklore go back thousands of years, so all of these names are very historical, and each goddess has a story behind it and a meaning behind it, and I'll go through all of those with you now. If you like this kind of content, please like this video and subscribe for more, and let's get started. Oh, before I begin, I just want to say there are a lot of different interpretations, and I don't mean to offend anyone if what I say isn't in line with your beliefs. I completely respect everyone's religions and beliefs, and what I'm saying is just kind of a quick summary, so no offense intended. So first up is the mother of all goddesses. She is probably the most ancient out of all the Gaelic gods, and that is Danú. And it's spelt with a fada over the U, D-A-N-U, fada. And what a fada is, it's an accent over vowels that changes the way they sound, it elongates them. So Danú, and it's pronounced Dan-U. Danú. And Danú is considered not only to be the mother goddess of Ireland, but also the mother goddess of all of the other gods and goddesses. She is the personification of nature, fertility, wisdom, and strength. And there are a few variants of the name Danú. She was also known as Anu, Anna, or Dana. She was very much associated with nature and earth and fertility, and there are actually mountains in County Kerry that are named after her. They are called Paps of Anu, or breasts of Anu, given their shape, and that is basically what she represents, nurturing of nature, of the earth. The next one is another very well-known, very ancient goddess, and that is Morrigan, and it's pronounced Mar-I-Gin. Or it can have a fada over the I and it's pronounced Mar-I-Gin. Or it can have a fada over the O and the I and it's Mor-I-Gin. Morrigan. So yeah, different variants depending on the fadas. And her name means either Great Queen or Phantom Queen, and she is known as the goddess of war and fate. She could take either the form of a beautiful woman or a crow or raven, and she was known to predict doom and death in battle. As a crow, she would hover over a battlefield and she could incite either courage to win the battle or incite fear to lose the battle, so she could kind of predict the outcome. And there's an old Irish tale of Morrigan offering her love to Cuchulainn, and Cuchulainn is Ireland's greatest warrior hero of all time, and he rejected her, so she predicted his doom, and as he lay dying on a battlefield, she manifested into a crow and perched on his shoulder as he died. I know it sounds like kind of a grim meaning for a baby name, but she wasn't all about doom and death. She was also about rebirth and life and protection. She was a very strong and powerful goddess. Next up is the goddess Cliodhna, and she is the goddess of love and beauty. It can be pronounced Cliodhna, Cliodhna, or Cliodhna. Cliodhna, and the extra syllable I think is just dependent on where in Ireland you're from. And goddess Cliodhna is the patron of County Cork, a place in Ireland, and she is said to have presided over the Celtic otherworld, which could loosely be interpreted as kind of a heaven, you know, a place where no one ages, no one dies, and a place of great beauty, and she was of great beauty. And she actually left this Celtic otherworld to be with her lover, but when she came to the mortal world, Ireland, she was taken away by a wave and drowned, and this was in Glendore Bay, and the tide in Glendore Bay today is still called after her. It's called Tun Cliodhna, which means wave of Cliodhna. And she's also associated with the Blarney Stone, which is one of the biggest tourist attractions in Ireland. The story goes that in the 15th century, Cormac McCarthy was building his castle, and he was involved in some legal problems. So he called out to goddess Cliodhna to help him with his legal problems, and she came to him in a vision and said on his way to the courts he should find a stone and kiss it, and that would give him the gift of eloquence. So he did this, and he went to court and he spoke with such great eloquence that he won the battle, and he brought this stone back to put it into his castle, and it's still there today. And now for hundreds of years there have been visitors coming to this castle to kiss the same stone that he kissed, the Blarney Stone, and to be given the gift of the gab, or the gift of eloquence, just like he did. I mean, you have to actually go upside down backwards in order to kiss the stone. It's not an easy one to kiss, but yeah, apparently that comes from goddess Cliodhna. The next goddess is Grainne, and it's pronounced Grainne. Grainne. And Grainne is known as the sun goddess and the winter queen. She nurtures the seeds through winter and then welcomes the rebirth of spring. And Grainne is Irish for sun, so I think that's what the connection is. Grainne comes from Grainne. She's the sun goddess. So the story of Grainne is actually a love story. She was due to be wed to an older man, but she didn't love him. She loved one of his warriors called Diarmid. So one day Grainne and Diarmid eloped. They ran away and escaped together, and they were assisted by Angus, the god of love, and he advised them to never sleep in the same bed twice. So every night they would lay down on a stone bed, spend the night there, and then the next day they would move to another stone bed. And these stone beds are still in Ireland today. They're known as giant's beds. Most people would associate them with the marital beds of great lovers, Grainne and Diarmid. So a lot of people would go to these stone beds to try and get pregnant. You know, barren women would see it as a cure if they lay down on these stone beds. And as I said, there are still so many of them around Ireland today. You can still see these stones today. They're 5,000 years old. The next goddess is Sadhbh, and it's spelled Sadhbh, and it is pronounced Céibhfhionn, like rhyming with 5. And Sadhbh is the goddess of nature, and Sadhbh is the granddaughter of the great god Dagda, whose mother was Danú. So she is Danú, you know, the mother of all gods. She is her great granddaughter. So the story of Sadhbh is this druid was in love with her, but she rejected his advances because he was a cruel druid. He was more about evil. So she rejected him, so he was furious and he turned her into a deer. So she spent 3 years as a deer in this forest, and then one day she set foot on the grounds of a castle belonging to Fionn McCool, and she was immediately returned to human form. And Fionn McCool saw her, fell in love with her, they got married, they were really happy, and then one day she was tricked into setting foot again on the forest grounds and was immediately turned into a deer again. And as a deer, she gave birth to her and Fionn McCool's son, and she raised him alongside her in the forest. And then one day, the cruel druid returned to lead her off away from her son, and Fionn McCool never gave up searching for her. And in the forest one day, he found his son who had been raised by her, and he brought him home to raise him, and he named him Étaín, which means little deer. So yeah, the story of Sadhbh doesn't end well. No one knows what happened to her after she was led away by the druid, but yeah, the goddess of nature anyway. And the next goddess is connected to the last story. This goddess is called Niamh, and she is the goddess of beauty and brightness. And Niamh is pronounced Niamh or Niamh. Again, kind of the extra syllable depending on where in Ireland you're from, how you pronounce it. And the story of Niamh is probably one of the best known stories in Ireland. It's Tír na nÓg. A lot of people learn this in school. It's just a very well-known old Irish mythological tale. So basically the story goes that one day this great warrior called Étaín was out hunting, and Étaín is Sadhbh's son and Fionn McCool's son. He's now grown up. He's a great warrior, and he's out hunting one day when he sees this beautiful woman on a horse and come galloping towards him. And she says to him her name is Niamh, and she's come from the land of Tír na nÓg, which means land of youth. She's come from Tír na nÓg to find this great warrior Étaín that she's heard about, to bring him back to Tír na nÓg with her. And he immediately falls in love with her and joins her on her horse, and together they set off to Tír na nÓg together. And Tír na nÓg is a place of great beauty. You never age, you never get old, and he's really happy there with Niamh, but he still misses his father. He misses Ireland, so one day he just wants to go back and visit with his father, and Niamh agrees to let him go, but just warns him, don't set foot on the land, and he agrees not to, and he goes up on the horse. But he didn't realize, but it's actually been 300 years that have passed since he was last there. So he's very upset to find that his father, Fionn McCool, is long since dead. All of his friends are dead. His castle is now in ruins. And he's going through observing all this, and then he sees some men trying to lift a rock, and they're having difficulty. So he gets down from his horse to help them, and then as soon as his foot touches the land, he suddenly ages into a very old man. And these men realize, oh my god, there's magic at play here, what's going on? So they bring him to St. Patrick, and St. Patrick questions him, and Oisin tells him all about Niamh and Tír and about what happened as he dies. So this is how we know all about the story of Niamh and the story of Tír as Oisin told it to St. Patrick. The next goddess is Ériu, and she's known as the patron goddess of Ireland, and it's pronounced Ériu, and it is spelt with a fada over the E. And the legend is that Ireland is actually named after Ériu. Ireland in Irish is Éire, and so Éire comes from Ériu. And the story goes that Ériu and her sisters were protecting the land from invaders, and Ériu was the most powerful and the most brave, and really protected the land, so she got the honor of the land being named after her, and that is why it's called Éire, Ireland. The next goddess is Bébinn, and she is the goddess of inspiration. And there are a lot of different ways you can pronounce this name, again depending I think on where in Ireland you're from. There's Céibhfhionn, Céibhfhionn, so yeah, take your pick. The name Céibhfhionn means fair locks, and the goddess Céibhfhionn was known for her knowledge, her intelligence, and her creativity. The next goddess is Canola, and she is the goddess of music, inspiration, and dreams. And the story of Canola is that one day she had a fight with her lover, and she was walking along the beach, and she was very upset, and she heard this music playing, and she was very inspired by this. So she went in search of what this music was, and it turned out it was the wind playing the carcass of a whale, and that created this kind of music. So this inspired her to create the harp, to kind of play the same kind of music. So she is the one that created the harp, and the harp is one of Ireland's main symbols, and she's very well known for inspiring creative endeavors. Canola. The next goddess is Áine, and she is the goddess of summer and wealth, and it's pronounced Áine, and it usually has a fada over the A. Goddess Áine represents sun, love, and fertility, and the power to ensure plentiful crops and harvests. And the story that goes with Áine is there was a king of Munster who was very concerned that his crops weren't growing. So he sought out help, and he asked Goddess Áine for help with his crops. And she came to him, and when he saw her, he was so overcome with her beauty that he forced himself on her. And as revenge, Áine bit off his ear, and any king of Ireland could not be a king if you had any blemish, so he could no longer be the king of Munster. So she took away that power, and there are other stories with her that is quite similar to this. You know, she's a goddess you don't mess with, she will get her revenge on you. So she was a very strong and powerful goddess. The next goddess is Bébinn, and she is the goddess of childbirth, and it can either be pronounced Bébinn, or Bébinn. And I think that just depends again on where in Ireland you're from. And the name Bébinn means fair lady. And Bébinn is the goddess of childbirth, but she's also known as the goddess of the underworld. The next goddess is Étaín, and she is the goddess of beauty and grace. And the name Étaín means shining one. The story of Étaín is such a long and intricate one, so I'm going to try and summarize it as best I can. So basically, the fairy king Midir fell in love with Étaín, and he proposed to her and wanted to marry her, but he already had a wife, and this wife was very jealous. So she turned Étaín into a fly, and Étaín spent the next 7 years as a fly swimming over the ocean, and then she returned to Ireland and fell into a wine glass of a woman who longed for a child. So this woman drank the wine with little fly Étaín in it, and Étaín went into her womb and was reborn through this woman, and then Étaín grew up and married a high king of Ireland, and she and Midir did meet again, their paths did cross, but there is just such a long story, I can't go into all of it now. But basically, the goddess Étaín reminds us that through whatever adversity, you can always keep your shining light and your grace and the beauty that comes from within. The next goddess is Brigid, and she is the goddess of spring, fertility, and life. And she's best known for her healing powers. Most people would already know this name from Saint Brigid. She's the patron saint of Ireland, and it's pronounced Bridge it. Brigid. And Brigid is actually the daughter of Morrigan, the goddess I spoke about earlier. She's her daughter. So I feel like they're all kind of interlinked in some way, and that's their connection anyway. Goddess Brigid was part of the Celtic pagan world 6,000 years ago. And Saint Brigid is part of the Christian world more like 1,500 years ago. So they're two separate beings, but they have kind of morphed into the same person along the way. They have a lot of the same qualities, and so people don't really know, are they supposed to be the same? Are they supposed to be two separate ones? But you know what they say, the Irish never let the truth get in the way of a good story, so the truth really lies somewhere in the past. So that's it. They are my baby names inspired by Irish goddesses. If you have any questions or if you have any requests for future videos, please leave them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, please subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye.